was 20, what, I was probably 24 at that time. I can't even say that I had a show with her. I almost, it still feels like she had a show and I was blessed to be in the same space. And I'm saying that with all like respect, because I did not see my work even coming close to dealing with anything, because it seemed like my life I was too young. I was too raw, and I was seeing her work, and her work was speaking, and I was just like, I'm not even certain if I should be here. And it's really not me trying to be humble. It's not that. It's out of the respect of somebody who was fearless and painted fearless. So she came in, and I'm not knowing who she is. I was hearing about Barbara all the time, and Carlton was very gracious in saying that he was putting me in this show with her because I was going to kind of think of passing the baton at that point in time. And she came in completely bald, extremely regal, and said, "Oh man, I've been waiting to meet you." And that idea of everything that you see here was someone so like there and present, even in the face of cancer, and understanding that she was not long for this earth. She still gave that to a 24-year-old to say, "I've been waiting to meet you." And I'm like, literally like, it's like one of my stars at the time. It still is. I mean, I'm 55 years old, and I came into this space and was like, how in the world do I get from 55 to where this is? Because I'm still taking my own. So lay that as a foundation as to now Carlton asking me, would you be okay with finishing all the works? There's 3 times I've been actually afraid to proceed in doing something that dealt with art. This was top of the list, like literally the top of the list. So this was an unfinished piece. And I'll have to ask Carlton, I mean, I know that you're not wanting to speak everything throughout the entire thing. Why was it this piece that you asked?
Well, actually 2, because there's another one we didn't show, and it was unfinished as well. And it was on my likeness jumping off a building. So I told her I didn't like the painting because it had a soundless scarf on it, and so she got mad and stopped working. But I love this work, and I love what it meant. I thought it was in terms of current issues and issues of North Nashville. I thought I tied my thoughts into that history, and I said this painting needs to be finished. So I approached Barbara about the painting. Barbara hated everything she did, and when she finished, she did it. Okay, and that was her mantra. But the thing is that I said I wanted this painting finished, and she couldn't help to do it. And then I thought, well, can I finish it? I thought my own ego as a former painter, I was going to do it myself. But then I said, Bill Sam paints like her. Let me go. Let me ask him. And so he did, but I always tell Sam, because I've done several commissions with him, and I always tell him, he has artistic license to interpret it the way he will. The white gentleman in there who's a prospector was his creation. Barbara did not have that. We just stop breaking about that.
Yeah. So I was seeing her work, and I knew that my skill level, I just didn't feel it was up to par. So I was thinking to finish at first, and that was eating away. It was eating away at my spirit. It was like I had no idea what to do, no idea how to even think of, because I didn't really feel like it was a collaboration, because she wasn't asking, but she was like literally in the midst of creating work that someone else also input their idea into. So I felt like, okay, if I think of this as attempting to finish, I'm not going to do it. Even if I were to actually put things in there, I wouldn't have felt like I was finishing the work. So I gave myself the license to say, Sam, I was asking you in third person, Sam, you were asked to do this. It's a problem that has to be solved. So the way I solved it was to change the idea of what was happening into gentrification. And what would it take for a place to change so much that it becomes unrecognizable? And I was considering that fits almost every place that one would kind of think of as a gentrified area that goes from an area of, and I particularly, yes, I see the violence, I understand that, but I also see the space, I also see the area, and it just feels like Barbara was saying something different than just the violence. It was also about area, it was also about, possession of area, possession of space. So what I did is actually kind of felt like, okay, what would it take for something, what would someone do if they were to say, okay, we got to change this, and this is the area that we want now, so I got to document all these things that are going on right here, and even in the area right here, not even document, but also direct how things need to be in order for this to be cleared out without anybody's fight, I guess you could say. And without anybody saying anything about it because you don't want this to exist. So what I did is actually thought about that idea of what it would take to gentrify an area. And not so much gentrify it in relation to what Barbara was stating, but taking it outside of that and literally saying, there's a plan to do things that may be detrimental to the people that are there, even if this scene appears to be detrimental to the people already. It's still theirs though, it's still their space, and maybe it doesn't need someone else to come in and wipe it out for it to be palatable to others. Maybe that's a growing pain that has to happen before joy happens, before someone sees it as being a space that actually is beneficial to everyone. No, we don't want killing. By all means, we don't want killing and stealing and all of that. But what happens if we recognize that shouldn't be and suggest our own cleaning up measures, for lack of better words? So the figures, and there are a couple of figures that I did paint in, because the images here are actually partially mine. You can tell some of the differences. The background building there was mine, so I wanted to kind of build it even higher to kind of play on the idea that all these new buildings are coming in. This area here was it was unfinished up at the top as well. So I did add a couple of buildings in, added a couple of kind of storefronts in. You can kind of tell it's a little bit different than Barbara's, a little bit. I mean, when I'm seeing the work, I'm like, and I'm not trying to be detrimental to my own skill. I'm not doing that at all. But when I see the work, I'm like, I know exactly what I did. I know exactly what Barbara did. And I'm hoping nobody sees, hoping nobody picks out the things that I did because it pales in comparison to what Barbara's done. So it's a recognition that she was masterful in playing. A lot of it is the idea of mixing concepts and ideas. She was masterful in the idea of composing space. I mean, if we're looking at the one behind you, if I were to tell you, we recognize that that's a city, but she's conceptually kind of playing with the idea of repetition, form, repetition of color, all those things that are truly making you feel uneasy. What I try my best to tell students that an artist has the ability to manipulate you to feel unease and busyness. All right? She's making you feel that not by the guns. I mean, that's only partially good, not by the shots, but also by the composition and the brightness of the color. It makes you uneasy, and she's a master of that. I mean, I don't think I'll ever get to that point where I'll understand how to compose something and play with scale and form and composition in the way that she has done, to add so much in there, but to make something quiet. That piece is strangely quiet because there's no place to rest, so the entire form becomes restful, even though it's disturbing. To have somebody be able to do that, I mean, like, and compose that. Imagine that 24-year-old looking at that, and somebody asking to finish. That's crazy. That's crazy. Right? I mean, it stands, and I understand that I can't kind of look at this through my eyes. If I'm looking at it through someone else's eyes, then it does feel cohesive. And I thank Carlton for that. I mean, that was a challenge. And her work is still challenging. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Not really. I had full confidence he could do what I hoped him to do. It's just that when they had the show together, the title of the show was The Beginning and the End. Barbara's life was ending, and his life was just beginning as a creative artist. And that was the title. In fact, Barbara was so in tune and loved the title that at the reception, she was saying to people in her very soft, beautiful voice and graceful way, she was saying, "I'm dying, you should buy my paintings." Some did. But she really understood that her life, her time was limited. But I think if anybody could tell the future, Sam became that future in her eyes, the closest thing to being able to communicate and have the courage to create honestly and without regret. And that's where I asked him just to see. I wanted it done, and I got lazy about doing it myself. And so I said, okay, Sam can do this, and this is what came about. And I was curious about the prospector. I was like, what do you put that in there for? But I understood the story. And so, and where that came, but again, it was coming from, he made part of his own. And Barbara, and he shares that creativity to this day.
That was a beautiful present that she gave, not to just me, but to anyone that is seeing her work that might be a creative person. And you said it's the honesty. And I mean, my nature is not confrontational. I mean, I have a tendency, I smile too much. And I'm not saying this because I'm saying this because I see kind of myself outside of myself sometimes. I smile too much, and people kind of take smiles, especially in this country, as being a bit, there's a pushover. We can have him do anything. But in my studio, and this is directly, I mean, like direct line from seeing Barbara's work when I was young, saying, oh, hell no. I mean, y'all gonna let me say what I want to say in this space? Talking about my studio? I'm gonna do whatever, and I won't cuss in there past the hill. I'm gonna do whatever that I want to do in this space and say whatever I want to say in this space so I can get it all out. And I'll let that speak to people the way that they speak. It's still done satirically and kind of in a funny, whimsical way sometimes, but I'm trying my best to be as hard-hitting as and honest as Barbara was.
Well, we can say anything about Barbara. She was illustrated. And in my background as a designer, you would look at this and say she illustrated, perhaps for somebody else. She was telling stories that were given to her to tell visually. And then even with that statement, which came from the Women on the Inner Journey project, and where several of the artists there in the Inner Place show participated, that creative process allowed her to say more, which gives us this painting here, all the difference between light and dark, to say about her interfering in controversy addressing white women and her relationship to white women. But one thing, I see it, I forget about it, and I see it again, because I hadn't seen this painting in such a long time. If you notice, among the women on the right, there's a black hand coming in. Mm-hmm. And so it's not strictly a black and white issue. It's a human issue. That people, the haves and the have-nots, the rich and the poor, the well and the sick, that how do they come together? Okay, and there's flowers in the middle, towards the middle, and that grass, which is not gentle. It's like a push and pull. And so that is really, it's the story again, it's not yet told. This painting might as well be unfinished, technically speaking, because it's still a story that's being told today. And so, and then having Sam do that painting, I knew it was an exercise. I go out and say the first painting. And I have, most recently, 2 years ago, commissioned him to do a painting to tell the story of my gallery, and which is a wonderful piece. And so, again, it just really, she was a storyteller. She was a griot in the African tradition. And then her wish over here to have a calm, she's flying over it as a maiden of change and accomplishment, that she is making a difference in her pink shoes and dress. And so really getting over to here, we can't discuss, we need more than an hour to discuss what Barbara, and this is just taking a little piece for your imagination, if you so choose to come back and take a more in-depth look. Barbara puts herself in a lot of works. She's right here in the parade. People think these are jelly beans, but they're balloons. And she's talking about the incarceration of Black men as a solution. Okay? And this is where, and then the likeness is this is James Smith, former boyfriend, and me as Earl Cook, professor at Frist, and James Floyd, who was celebrated as a poet. And we're all put behind the bars in celebration, because it didn't matter whether we were a problem or not, but we would just receive it. And then this is all the money and what has been spent to incarcerate people and throw them out of the country and all the things that happen. This is kind of a product of that. A lot of the things that she painted about 30 years ago are now happening. Now, we have one here I just want to speak about, and I'm going to just speak very softly about it. But this was painted literally over 30 years ago. And what kind of issues are we dealing with today? It speaks as though it was painted yesterday. It's still a major issue. And she used likenesses of people. This is a former chair at the department in Nashville. This is an arts writer. And she used a friend as Barbara. And I was just discussing with Cynthia. I didn't even see this woman until now, who she seems to be protecting. Okay? And who's behind her? Because she's the puppet. She's a puppet. And so Barbara really was getting it, and we just can only wonder what she would have done today. But she knew her time was limited. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You got to keep it among yourselves. But it's turned out to be, to me, a very proud moment in terms of who Barbara was, because that's the question that is asked. And I was in New York at the Armory show, all of this art. And there was one art statement, and it said, who is certain, whatever artist. And then I just said, that relates to Barbara. Who is she? We don't know her. But we have her cousin to speak about her life, and she's got stories. I'm the biggest thief on that, because I get to hang out with her while she's staying, and she's just got story after story, so I feel very rich right now. And Sam, who did not know her much as a person when she was alive, he got to know her after her life and incorporate it into his own growth. And one thing that's so interesting to me when I was growing up and learning, one of my favorite artists is Rodin. And his wife, I understood, was just as prolific as he was. But who was her name? Nobody knows her name. How many? And you know, Picasso had these female art geniuses in his company. There's so many artists who had women in the company as understudies and what have you, who probably deserve just as much recognition as they did. And we got a little twist going on today. And a little trick that we did not plan. It was not planned, but it needs to be said. But if you will look at this painting here, it's called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Somehow it got past our censors. And, but for some reason, were not able to immediately distinguish. It was always curious because they were about hip-hop. Okay? And so, but the style, the windows, the wallpaper, which is different, but still stylized. The black and white color, the 50s style look against this person who are the 90s, the 2000s. And we come to find out, and this is so typical of Barbara. Barbara was always embracing controversy. But will the real artist step forward? I feel as curators, my responsibility to make sure every painting is like Barbara. But I created the monster. And Sam was really taken by Barbara. And this is like 6 years later?
After her death.
After her death. And then it was uncomfortable because this is a women's show. So we didn't want to mix those things up. But the thing is that it happened. But here is a man who was very influenced by a woman artist. Yeah. And so it sort of and that's Barbara. Barbara affected so many people in this town in other places. As Cynthia will attest, Barbara could do no wrong. She was just an amazing spirit that everybody, whether they understood her or not, wanted to. And when Sam did this painting, for whatever reason, he normally signs his work, but he didn't. So the red flag didn't come up there. The shop has been in a collection for 30 years, and I did not, or 25 years, and I failed to see. Everybody failed to, question it, and it got into the show. Now, it could be a big scandal. It could be the imperfection of this show, but it is perfection.
Well, to be clear, Carlton, the institution which held the work had it cataloged as Barbara Bullock, so don't beat yourself up on that. We were told it was Barbara.
I know, but I hope you understand, I am no longer upset.
Okay.
I am very happy about it because, we need to celebrate women art. We need to celebrate men art. We need to celebrate black art, what have you. And to compartmentalize is very much a standard in how we address art in terms of ethnicity, nationality, what have you, period pieces. But Barbara broke the rules. And unbeknownst of me and others, we broke them too. And at first it was a shock because I found out the day after the opening, and Sam came to me and said, well, I think that painting is mine. And the bigger truth is there's another painting campaign that was too controversial to show, wasn't ready for it this time. But it looks a lot like this thing. And so, in my mind, it was just natural flow. But the thing is that we can see Barbara in this piece. We can see her spirit. Not hip hop now, so much, but the family dynamic of someone bringing home a young man that they don't understand. That's universal. And so this is just really, and then the black and white and color mixture, and there were so many similar, and the crow, maybe just tell us a little bit about what the crow means.
Well, just a little bit of background, but I guess when I did come in and I saw it, like, this looks quite familiar. But I was completely fine with not saying a word. I mean, I said, Carlton, I was completely fine with it. I wasn't even the idea that I was like, oh man, I'll tell everybody else with Frist. It was not that at all. I was literally concerned with, does somebody know that this is owned it? Are they owning it as hers? So it was a fear more so than anything else. But Carlton is completely, I mean, I grew up in a family of very strong matriarchs as well as patriarchs. So I respect, if somebody's giving you something, in my family, it doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man. It's the information, and you respect the woman that is giving it to you. So you do see a lot of similarities. This was at a time where I was struggling to, my work many years ago was very stylized, very stylized. And I was making a decision on whether I wanted to go more stylized and keep down that road or start moving towards more naturalistic painting. And so I created a series of works that kind of blended the two to try to see which road I was going to take. So I dealt with a number of works that kind of played with that idea of Americana and played with the concepts of Black people being in situations where they literally take upon the look and the feel of Americana in conflict with new concepts and new ideas. So that was like a number of works that kind of played with that. I had another work where two Black police officers were smiling for a camera with a young Black man on the top of the car. The young Black man was more stylized and more realistic. So I was just playing with those ideas. But the idea of this particular male wanting to make sure that he gets away from the concept of being your traditional Black male and what America kind of considers. Just to have his daughter bring that element that he's trying to get away from into his home. And it was an attempt to kind of have it in his face that he's uncomfortable, but he has to accept it, that his, like, roost is coming home, now like the chickens coming on the roost. So play on the idea of eating crow. And his wife is doing her wifely duties, just literally present that to him with a smile, even though she is just as uncomfortable as he is, but he's kind of the leader of the family in that situation. So she's doing his bidding by also just taking off and allowing us to see that they all have to eat crow because the daughter is just so happy that she's finally having her father meet the guy that she's interested in at that time. And I wanted to also play with the idea of just like Barb's work, I get into a lot of symbolism, almost sometimes it's too much symbolism. So he's throwing up the A-Town Down symbolism for Atlanta, but he has on Chicago Bulls garb, which is a direct influence of the idea of the Great Migration from the South to the Midwest and to the North. Oh. So it's almost that play on, this gentleman here is also the idea of the Old South coming to the North. So he's kind of bringing that contradiction that, I am you. I'm coming, my soul is coming from the South and I'm in the Midwest at this point in time. So there's a play on that as well. So I do a lot of heavy symbolism and work that's kind of quiet enough to where if it's not seen, I'm completely fine with it, but if it is, it's there. That's, I guess,
Well, I think it's an interesting trade-off because Sam had a chance to finish one of Barbara's paintings that she failed to finish. And I don't want to say failed, but she chose and allowed for him to finish. And maybe through Barbara's spirit, she finished his. And that is the statement of the greatness of women artists. And that's why I don't mind that, they say that creative, what is a creative mistake, or what is a statement when you make a little mistake in your creativity?
Happy accident.
Happy accident. It's a happy accident. And we labored over it, whether, just to let it ride or whatever. But the thing is, it will ride. But it needs to ride as we are truthful to our cause of celebrating women artists. And they affect all of us, not just other women artists. And that's the beauty of why it is there. It's still hanging, because we could have switched it out in the middle of the night, right? But we didn't. We just let it stay proudly there, but it really says a lot about the show and how we're able to, all of us, create dynamic art, and certainly Barbara is one of them. Is there any? We're kind of at 7 o'clock, so is there any quick Q&A But we're all standing, and I know my leg is tired. So anybody have any questions? Quick questions?